What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com. He's Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report, and the Kansas City Chiefs have a huge question to answer at left guard this season. We'll talk about it right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, Kansas City did some shuffling along the offensive line this past offseason when they decided to ship off All-Pro left guard Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears and brought in two major players at the left tackle position in order to try and address that. They also franchise tagged Trey Smith in order to keep him around at least for the short-term future. But Michael, I think the move that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit was the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are taking left tackle, former left tackle now, I guess we can say, Kingsley Suamataia, who was a second-round draft pick last year, and they're simply moving him to left guard and basically calling it good. And I think because Joe Thuney was the major headline around the time they announced that, it's just kind of like, okay, and everyone forgot about it, but we never really got a chance to discuss this plan in depth. And like I said, the Chiefs have a big question to answer this offseason at left guard, because that is a position which is also going to be huge, because left tackle is one thing, but also whoever your left tackle is no longer going to have Joe Thuney next to them helping out. And no matter what kind of season we get from Kingsley, I think it's safe to say right now that he's not going to be Joe Thuney, at least not in his first year playing the position. But Michael, to kick things off, what are your thoughts really about Kingsley Suamataia appearing at left guard this season for the Chiefs? And do you think he wins that job?
You know, it's interesting because it almost seems like Chiefs fans have already given the left guard position to Kingsley, which he has not earned anything yet. This is a guy that washed out at left tackle after 2 games last season. And if Joe Thuney was still here, we would not be talking about Kingsley Suamataia taking over that job at left guard. And obviously that's because Joe Thuney is an all-pro. But the point is that it took trading an all-pro guard to even be having this conversation. And something very interesting that I actually heard on Sports Radio 810 is Seren Petro was talking about how often is it that someone who doesn't end up working out at a position ends up playing a different position and ends up being elite? Because guess what? It doesn't happen. And I know there's a lot of guys that don't end up being, guys that play tackle at the next level, and then they transition very well to guard. And Kingsley didn't have that chance to, play guard at the next level yet. Like, he went immediately from college tackle to pro tackle, and that's a pretty hard transition. So maybe if the Chiefs never put him in that position to be the left tackle, then he'd be a really solid guard, and we never even having this conversation. But I do think you can't just give Kingsley the job, because while I think he's better on paper than Mike Caliendo, Kingsley could struggle at left guard, just like he struggled at left tackle. And if that's the case, the Chiefs are going to have a very difficult problem on their hands, and maybe something that Jalen Moore has to step in and be the left guard to fix it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point to bring up. I've always said from day one, I think at worst, if Kingsley Suamataia doesn't work out at left tackle or any tackle spot, that he can be a plus level starter at the guard position. We see this all the time where guys have to move inside at the pro level. Really good tackles in college, even though they have the athletic traits and they have the size. And Kingsley did have the size and the athletic traits, but it just hasn't worked out at left tackle. And the Chiefs saw enough, and they said, we think we can still make this person a plus starter at left guard. And I think the same with Wanya Morris, who I think has kind of fallen behind, in Chiefs fans' heads, or he's just kind of fallen to the back of everyone's head. That guy is still a solid player that can start anywhere on this line, really, in a pinch. And I know he looked rough at left tackle there last year for a minute, but he was injured. But he gave you some flashes here and there. So anyway, reeling it back into Kingsley, though, I do think the potential is absolutely there for him to be the starting left guard, and a good one. Like I said, a plus level starter. And There are a few things, though, that I think we need to talk about before we just hand him that left guard position. Because, Michael, I think back to something that you said after the Super Bowl, and they were talking about how Kingsley was warming up on the sideline in that Super Bowl to take over for a struggling Mike Caliendo, yet they never put him in. And it just kind of makes you think, okay, the Super Bowl was so bad, the performance you were getting from those players at left guard and left tackle was so bad that you considered putting Kingsley in, but didn't actually put him in. So what does that say about Kingsley as a left guard, going forward? I think that is a question that we have to ask. Now, could that just have been Andy's stubbornness? Probably. But, man, I just think they could have put him in that position a lot sooner instead of Mike Caliendo if they really thought this guy could step in for Joe Thuney. I mean, it's not like we're replacing, Andrew Wiley here. We're talking about replacing Joe Thuney, a perennial all-pro left guard. So Kingsley has some big shoes to fill. But I don't think it's really a question about the potential, if he hits his ceiling, can he be this good of a player? I just think, he has to put it all together. And I do think it was a little unfair the way they handled his time in Kansas City so far. I mean, just throwing him to the wolves essentially. And you talked about it in the last video we did. They didn't really give him that many snaps in the preseason leading up to the season. And then they were just like, hey, you're the starter. And he struggled. And that's because they just didn't handle that situation well. And I've never been a fan of starting rookies at left tackle, not unless you're like a top 5, like surefire. This guy's, a future Hall of Fame level prospect. Kingsley was not that. He was a 2nd-round pick. So I know I just put a lot of stuff out there, Michael, for you to react to, but that just when you tell me Kingsley starting at left guard and then ask me my thoughts, that's just kind of what I think.
Well, here's the thing. So paying attention to the OTA stuff, Andy Heck, the offensive line coach, got to speak to the media, and he kind of compared Kingsley's development as a, Laurent Duvernay Tardif kind of timeline. And LDT was a guy that was a pretty solid guard when he was here, but he was not a solid guard for the first couple of years that he was here.
Yeah.
But there's also a difference because LDT, I think if I'm correct, was like a 6th-round draft pick or
Correct,
5th or 6th.
Yeah.
Like he was not someone that was a day 2 pick and definitely not as athletic as Kingsley. And so you should expect Kingsley.
Yeah, I was going to say, and sorry to cut you off, but like, I think it would be a little bit disappointing if he was only LDT.
That's what I'm saying. Like, at least, I mean, if he was Nick Allegretti, I'd sign up for that at this point. Like, Nick Allegretti is the guy that's getting paid by the Commanders, and he was, I mean,
they played in an NFC Championship game.
Yeah, when we won a Super Bowl with him starting at guard. It's like that's a guy that like you can win with, and he was a 6th, 7th-round draft pick that ended up being really good. But for whatever reason, I think that you're right. If Kingsley, with all the athletic traits, ends up being LDT, that's not a good pick. That's not a really good pick at all. And if we just go down the timeline of guys the Chiefs have selected to play left tackle, remember Lucas Niang? We thought he was going to be next up, even next up at guard. And he's not even playing. Well, he might be playing football. I don't know where.
He might be on a practice squad somewhere, but
I don't know where he is, but he's not here. And the Chiefs have, Darian Kennard is another one. We have taken a lot of swings in the draft at tackle, not all of them left tackle, but it hasn't worked out for the most part. And they haven't really worked out.
Free agency, they've kind of whiffed there too. I mean, Orlando Brown was supposed to be the long-term guy. It wasn't. Jawan Taylor was supposed to be long-term right tackle. And I mean, he's long-term, I guess, because the contract essentially forces him to be that. But if the Chiefs could get out from under that now, I'm sure they would.
They absolutely would. And not trying to completely blow this conversation up, but like, it makes the Jalen Moore signing even more questionable. Like, why did you do that? Is he going to be right tackle next year, assuming that Jawan Taylor isn't? Like, what was the plan? I don't understand. And maybe he's a great backup to have if you need a left guard, but that's kind of why I mentioned maybe you put Jalen Moore at left guard, because when the Chiefs signed Jawan Taylor.
Well, let me stop you right there, Michael. Okay. Hold on. Before you keep going, because I like where you're going here, and I want you to get this idea out to everyone. But first, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Penalty Verdict. They're coming out with a new app for next football season. You guys are going to want to check this out.
Whether you're sick of seeing your team constantly get screwed over by the refs, tired of hearing about how your team only wins because of the refs, or simply just desire fair play and accountability, then Penalty Verdict is the perfect app for you. Penalty Verdict is a new app that allows football fans to vote on penalty calls in real time on both NFL and college football games. With Penalty Verdict, you'll be able to engage with a community of football fans who desire accuracy and transparency in officiating. And not only does Penalty Verdict allow you to vote on and discuss penalties in real time, but you'll also have access to data and statistics on specific referees. And you can even see what your favorite team's win-loss record is with that referee heading the crew. You can use this information to make educated guesses on who's going to win each game, and earn even more XP, which can be used to place wagers and climb up leaderboards on Penalty Verdict. Unlock the next dimension of sports by engaging with real-time polling of referees, players, and teams. And lastly, view data-driven insights to have informed discussions about the games. While Penalty Verdict is still in the development phase, we would love to hear your guys' feedback on what features you want to see in the app for next football season. Invite your friends to join and share Penalty Verdict today, and follow Penalty Verdict on social media.
So yeah, guys, that is Penalty Verdict. Link is going to be in the description to get on the wait list for that. Definitely want to see you guys on there next season. But Michael, right before we went to that break, you were talking about what the Chiefs' master plan is along the offensive line. And if Kingsley doesn't work out there may be another solution. And you brought up Jalen Moore's name because that was the big free agent signing. But there seems to be a little bit of a logjam because of the draft picks that the Chiefs have made, because of the moves they made along the offensive line. So continue with where you were headed with that.
Yeah, so something that I was thinking about, and this is kind of going in the Wayback Machine, but when we all, this would have been 2022 offseason, or 2020, the season before the 2023 season, I believe. Yes, the Chiefs signed Jawan Taylor, and everyone thought that Jawan Taylor was going to replace Orlando Brown. The Chiefs had their left tackle of the future. And when he started playing right tackle, we were like, oh, so who is your left tackle going to be? Then they got Donovan Smith. But we all thought that Jawan Taylor was left tackle. And it almost seems like Jalen Moore could be, a carbon copy of that. We all think, oh, this is the left tackle of the future. And then, you draft Josh Simmons, who he's not going to play guard unless he just completely flames out. And so you're probably going to have to find some spot on the offensive line for Jalen Moore to play. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up playing left guard. Yeah,
it's really interesting that you say that, because, and I like the thinking here, because I do think it makes sense based off what the Chiefs have done in the past, right? You brought up the Jawan Taylor comparison, because I remember as well when they signed Donovan Smith to be their left tackle in 2023, it was very late in the offseason they did that. So it's almost like they watched Jawan Taylor at left tackle and said, yeah, he's more of a right tackle. Now we have to figure something else out. Their plan may be, as of right now, Kingsley at left guard, like they announced when they traded Joe Thuney, but maybe they see him play at left guard and they go, yeah, well, we do have this $15 million per year free agent that no longer is going to be our starting left tackle. We'll just slip him in right there.
Yeah, and I think, listen, with the way the Chiefs have constructed their offensive line, giving out massive amounts of money to guys that probably shouldn't get massive amounts of money, it's not crazy to think that the Chiefs would pay someone $15 million a year to play left guard. They just franchise tag Trey Smith, who's going to be making $23 million a season. And guess what?
Interior O-lineman.
What's going to happen with Trey Smith? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many questions the Chiefs are going to have to answer on that offensive line. And I mean, Kingsley has a lot of pressure on him because you need him to work out, whether it's on the right side or the left side. He has got to play, Josh, because you can't keep pissing away second-round draft picks. Sky Moore is one thing. It's more important that you get production from your offensive line prodigy.
For sure. No, I absolutely agree, but I think that is a good stopping point. But guys watching, what are your expectations for Kingsley Suamataia in 2025? Do you think he wins that starting left guard job? And do you think he does it well? Would love to hear from you guys in the comments. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com. You can follow me on Twitter at showmefb. And then Michael, before we sign off, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. That's kind of the one-stop shop for everything that I do. And hit that like button on this video. More daily Chiefs content is going to be coming from me and Josh. So You don't want to miss out on any of it.
There you guys have it, and that'll all be in the description down below as always. So that's all we have for you guys in this one. We'll see you all in the next one, and as always, go Chiefs!